We are live.
Okay. You're ready. Well, welcome to Dances with Catchers. My name is Janine Atwood-Baines, and I am the Pitch Pit coordinator. I am all things Pitch Pit. Joining us today, we have Stephen Wright, VP of Development for Mandt Bros Productions. Now, before we get started, I just want to let everyone know that if you have questions, and I'm sure you will, you can tweet them to #NATPE or enter them into the Stickcam chat area. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's jump in. Now, I know you graduated from Hampton University School of Business.
Yes.
Excellent school. And now you're in development.
Yeah.
Was that always your plan?
My plan was really just to get involved in production. Development was sort of a niche that I found, number one, just because that's a job that exists year-round. You know, all the jobs below the line in production are very contingent on you being in production.
Right.
When you're not in production, you're always in development. When you're in production, you're in development. So that's sort of how I found a way to make sure that I was employed consistently.
Okay. Now, of course, I got a chance to look at your bio, and there's extensive experience. You were a PA, you produced music videos, commercials, all kinds of things. Did any of that prepare you for what you're doing?
Absolutely. I think, the main thing that I'm doing right now is looking for interesting characters and interesting stories. So I think, my earlier experiences helped me, one, just understand that business, it's a people business, it's a relationship business. People want to do business with people who they like, who they can kind of get along with. And so I think if you...
Say that again. Listen, everybody.
You want to do business with people who they like, who they can get along with. So I think, learning how to do a good job when you're, as a PA or as an assistant, when you're doing stuff nobody wants to do. When you learn how to do stuff like that with a smile on your face, you kind of just can build a rapport and just being a pleasant person to be around. So I think that definitely helped me.
So there are no small jobs?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Now, while you were previously working for an international media and distribution company, you split your time between the Philippines and Hong Kong, and you were developing original content for a Southeast Asian market.
Yeah.
Tell me about that experience and how that market differs from the U.S. market.
I think basically the company that I was working for, we ran a satellite television station called Fashion One, which was competing with Fashion TV. So that was, 24/7 around the clock content in the fashion space. So there was docu-soaps on models. There were live news and event coverage, different fashion events and runway type events, things of that nature. So that was the bulk of what we were doing. So it really appealed to just the fashion audience. Fashion is pretty universal. People just like nice clothes and that whole lifestyle. And besides just being, the majority of the shooting that we did was in Asia, but it was throughout Asia and Western Europe as well. So it was pretty similar to the market out here. That channel could do well out here. I think if it was launched.
Okay, any differences, things that check out? Like, there's things that you look for content for this market that wouldn't even consider for that market?
I think, the tastes and preferences of that market are a little different. The culture is different. What they value is different in parts from what we might value here in America. There's a story just recently I saw about Ferrari was launching, doing a media campaign for this new Ferrari they have, the Year of the Dragon, and they rented some special landmark or something in China. And during the presentation of this new Ferrari, they did a burnout on this statue, on this wall. Apparently got permanent skid marks on there, and it was a huge uproar because not only did they destroy this landmark, but very ostentatious displays of wealth are sort of frowned upon. So we have to, just be cognizant of, what kind of image you're portraying and what kind of, values your content is portraying as well.
So along the same lines, we're talking about different markets. If I have an idea for a show, should I automatically consider the U.S. market, or should I just think globally and think about other markets that it might work better in?
I think really the markets that you're trying to decide on in terms of where you want to launch your product are really just a function of the distribution medium that you want to use. So for instance, if you know, you're talking like some kind of short format, you know, 3 to 7 minute video that you might put up on the internet, then you can think globally because, you know, YouTube is an international distribution platform.
Right.
You know, all those audiences are global, which is something I think people really need to take advantage of. You know, the internet as itself, you know, is a global platform. If you want to get paid for your project, I would definitely probably think about the U.S. first, just because, you know, the majority of projects that are being sold domestically, especially for independent producers. So, you know, you've got the infrastructure, and then also the production partners that you need to actually sell to a major network are all based in the States. So, you know, it just kind of depends on what your project entails.
Okay. Now, I want to jump down to another question I have for you, and it's kind of piggybacking on something that you mentioned. What are your thoughts about using short branded content to establish your creative voice and use it to launch your career?
Right. I mean, it just depends on what kind of career you're talking about. If you're a personality or a character, or you have some sort of business, I think definitely using short format content to sort of market yourself is important, because it's accessible. It's something that you can actually do. You know, I think one of the biggest problems people have is kind of setting their hopes, you know, really high, or focusing on just one means by which to get their project seen. And if it's like television, I mean, that process is pretty simple. And, you know, you can try for a year to get your business on television and have nothing to show for it. Versus if you say, you know, I'm simultaneously trying to pitch my project for television, but at the same time I'm going to try and build my audience by, you know, doing some sort of short format video highlighting my business or my life or whatever, and just do it on YouTube or for the internet. I think that's you know, really important too. It doesn't hurt, and it adds credibility to you as a character. You know, they're looking for people who have a following. So and you can leverage that too. You know, so if you, I don't know, have some kind of business and you start doing a little web series and you're getting 500,000 views, you know, per video, and you can leverage that, and the networks will be receptive to that, and other major brands might be receptive to that as well, because I think that's one of the areas where I think a lot of the funding for content is going to be coming from, you know, brands, not, you know, consumer brands. So if you have a following, you can definitely leverage that.
If I am not talent, though, and I am not promoting my business, but I'm a content creator,
Right.
I'm a producer, writer, would it work basically the same way in terms of getting my name out there, or?
I think so. I mean, I think it's just important for creatives to be creating consistent. You know, I think that's really important. I mean, a lot of people say they're, you know, producers or writers, but they haven't produced anything, haven't written anything. And you don't need a large company to co-sign you before you start creating your content. You know, so if you produce something. If you start writing something, distribute it, you know, accordingly. There's just a lot of examples of people who've been successful, I think, in creating content and distributing it in places other than, you know, 88 cable networks or cable channels. You know, so I think that's really important.
That's good stuff. So if you have some projects that you're working on and you're already coming to the Pitch Pit, which you should be coming, if you haven't, you should register, but keep writing, keep creating, keep producing. Just keep plugging away.
For sure.
Let's see here now.
Pain got a lot of questions.
Well, you know, we have people coming to PitchCon in the Pitch Pit, and they have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So I am the mouthpiece for them, trying to get as much information to them.
I'm like, dang, it's a lot of answers. I got.
It's possible.
That's what I'm thinking about.
Now, I thought this was extremely impressive. Over the past 3 years, you have created content in over 30 countries.
Yeah.
So, where did you find all that content, or did it find you?
Okay, so that's just an interesting way. I had a couple shows that just happened to go to a lot of places. So on paper, it sounds a little bit more crazy. So where I'm at now at Mandt Bros Productions, we have I would say like a unique niche in that we do a lot of travel programming.
Okay.
So between the feature film that we produced and a series we have on Fuel TV called Strangers in Danger, and then another scripted show we have on Showtime called Next Stop for Charlie. I mean, those shows combined shot in over 30 countries. So, for instance, Strangers in Danger, which is a show that's on Fuel TV, which is Fox Network. Essentially, that follows two BMX bikers around the world. Each episode's in a different country, and they do kind of 10 of the most extreme and interesting activities in a given country. So, they'll do dirty jobs, they'll eat weird foods, they'll do crazy, unique sports you've never heard of. Kind of a plethora of different activities. So that show alone, in 2.5 months, we did 13 countries. We just wrapped the second season just a couple weeks ago. So that was another 13 countries, and that's everywhere from like Colombia to Bangladesh. So we did the whole, we went. It was pretty crazy. And then after that, we also did Next Stop for Charlie, which is a scripted show. Stars Neil Mann, and essentially that show, again, the first season was 10 countries, and the second season was another 10. So we like to travel. We like to see the world. So that was cool.
Okay. You mentioned Mandt Brothers, and that's, of course, a company that you're with now. And I was going to ask you to tell us a little more about Mandt Bros Productions.
So Mandt Brothers was founded, probably been in business now about 10 years. It's two brothers, Neil and Michael Mann. Basically, we started with a show, a couple different shows on ESPN. Jim Rome was Burning, which did 1,500 episodes. It's on CBS now. Did another show called Beg, Borrow, and Deal. It's basically a precursor to The Amazing Race, which was a national competitive reality shows on ESPN, and that was about 7 or 8 years ago. And since then, we created a series for Food Network, Sci-Fi, Showtime, Destination Truth, which was on Sci-Fi, which was a great program. Done stuff for just a plethora of different networks. And again, like this year coming up, we've got a bunch of pilots in development at a bunch of networks, but for sure the second season of Next Stop for Charlie, that'll be premiering on Showtime in a couple months, and the second season of Strangers in Danger, which is on Fuel, that'll be premiering in a couple months as well. So keep us busy for sure.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, of course, we are hoping that when you participate in the Pitch Pit next month, that you will find some interesting projects to add to your lineup. Now, I know this is going to be your first time participating as a catcher, so welcome. Thanks for joining us. You've already filled out the catcher mandate, but I would love for you to give them a little more information, a little more insight into exactly what you're looking for.
Okay, so, we're pretty lucky. We've done business with a lot of the major networks. We have good relationships at all of them, so we, with our past expertise and kind of our infrastructure, we feel comfortable really being able to pitch to any network. So primarily what we're looking for, which is the same as everybody else, is just big characters, conflict, and stakes. Formats not so much. We're interested in formats if there's talent attached. If there's no talent attached, formats are just a hard sell. But we are interested in it. But just big characters. People who are bigger. They don't need to be Snooki big, but whatever world that character exists in, they need to be the biggest thing in that world. And they need to have some sort of glue that holds all the characters in your show together that's interesting or different. So unique worlds, unique businesses, interesting and unique characters, stuff that looks different than what you see on television right now. I think that there's definitely a push towards getting more minority characters on television, especially people of Latin American descent. That's really big right now, just statistically. So we're definitely looking in those directions. Just big characters. Big characters is really what we're looking for. Big characters. Absolutely.
Okay. And when you say you're looking for projects with talent attached, what level of talent is going to really make you do a double take?
It's not really about are they a celebrity or not. That is really irrelevant. Just means somebody who you want to see on TV. Who's the next Dog the Bounty Hunter. The guys at Pawn Stars are the ones who really make Pawn Stars a cool show. All these shows are now, the majority of them are just really character driven. So it's not, they don't need to have a certain status. They just need to be dynamic and stand out. And you really just, when you see a character within like 15 seconds, like, oh yeah, that's something, or like, that's that's not, you know, we're looking for characters who don't have to be produced to be interesting. They need to already be interesting.
Okay.
You know what I mean? They already need to pop. And I think you just know, you know, you just know.
Okay. Is there anything that you are definitely not looking for? So if you have that kind of project, don't sign up for Mandt Bros because it'll be a waste of your time.
Pornography. You know, nothing scripted. That's not really in our world, so nothing in the scripted world.
Okay.
I would say not so much game show. Not too into that. But everything else, I mean, we're pretty open. And I mean, the other thing too that we're doing at PitchCon is really just trying to meet producers. You know, so it's as much about the project as it is about meeting you as a producer, seeing what your skill sets are. You know, maybe being able to share insights so we can possibly work together in the future on a different project. You know, so sometimes even if it's not necessarily a fit, like we still want to meet you. You know, because you might have access to characters or stories that we might not normally be able to have access to being based here in LA. You know, with our finite amount of development staff. So you definitely want to talk.
Good, good. So when someone comes to pitch, it's not just about your project. You are pitching yourself. So keep that in mind. Walk in with multiple hats on because at the end of the day, it's a win-win. If they love you, even if they're not interested in the project, there's a relationship that you have an opportunity to start there.
Absolutely.
Okay, now let's talk about pitching. Dig into that a little bit more. Pitching, there's an art to it, and we try to remind people that it's not a monologue. It's a conversation. Now, you can spend your 10 minutes talking only about your project and yourself, and you will only have 30 seconds left to shake their hand and walk away. Any advice you can give to our potential pitchers?
I think first you have to have a good project. That's really important because if your project sucks, regardless of how well you pitch it, it's just not good. And I think in preparing your pitch, it gives you insight into whether or not your project is good. You know what I mean? Because it forces you to have a good pitch. You have to really know your project. You know, if you really know your project, you're gonna have a good sense of whether or not this is good. So, you know, really knowing your stuff. So if it's a format, it's understanding. You basically just want to be able to answer all the questions that are asked of you. You gotta really know your stuff. Like, I don't want to be figuring out what your show's about. You need to know it inside and out. So if it's a format, you need to have, you know, it's a game show that, you know, has some unique set of circumstances. Like, have 20 examples of what those circumstances are going to be, or what those challenges are going to be. If it's, you know, like a docu-soap where we're following around a group of people, I mean, define what follow is. You know, people always say, we're going to follow them around this person. You know, be able, you know, what is the meat of the show? You know, think, you know, I feel like the networks want to buy into stuff that they can have 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons of. You know, so really be able to talk through, you know, 10 episodes. Like if somebody would ask you, like, well, what, you know, what's this show going to be about? You know, the first episode is, oh, they're going to go out and they're going to party. You know, they're going to get drunk and they're going to spend some money. It's like, okay, now that's done. What are they going to do the rest of the season? So being able to really see, just having vision, you know, and just know your characters. Just really know just knowing your stuff. And I think people respect that because it's easy to see when somebody knows what they're talking about and when they don't. And so again, I think a good pitch is somebody who's just prepared, you know, who's looked at their project critically, who knows what the holes are. You know, it's like, okay, I've got this great talent, I've got this business that's really interesting, but, you know, I do understand that their business is not really thriving right now. So here's where we might have to, you know, do some extra producing. Like, you know, just knowing the strengths and the weaknesses of what you're bringing to the table is good.
Do your homework. Know your stuff.
Absolutely.
How flexible should a content creator, producer be in a pitch situation? They come in, they have this idea, it's their baby, they've been working on it for months or years, and they see it this way. It is this format, it should be on possibly these couple of stations. That's it.
Right.
How flexible should you be?
Extremely flexible. I mean, just I mean, if you
Could
want
you say that again?
you have to be extremely flexible. I mean, ultimately, somebody else is going to distribute this. I mean, it just depends on if you want your stuff bought. You don't have to be flexible if you just want to go out and tell a lot of people about your idea and argue with them.
Okay.
But, again, each network has a specific mandate. They know their audience.
Right.
You're just one person. You can't, even if you had a Nielsen box, you couldn't move the needle on the ratings. So it's, your opinion, I think, is important, but I think you also have to know there's no way in the world that you can know the mandates of 80 some odd networks enough to be able to tell them that it should be one way when maybe they know because of their research and their dozens of people they have on staff who are analyzing their audiences what the direction of the network is. They just know more than you do. So plus people only, again, I think this is very important, right? If you come off as not flexible, people do not want to work with you.
Okay.
And they're going to be like, you're going to be a pain, and a pain in my butt. And so, majority of these, if you come as an independent producer, first you got to partner with a production company.
Right.
So you're not even selling it to the network, you're just partnering with us. And majority of production companies, I mean, honestly, if you're already the middleman, honestly.
Right.
Your only currency is the talent that you have attached to your project. Like, honestly, that's what you have. Not your skill sets, not your showrunner abilities for the majority of people. It's just somebody with an idea. And so what people really want is just that talent. You just like an agent, essentially. So I think the more flexible you are, the more people want to work with you, and the more involved you can be with your show idea if it does somehow end up, getting sold to a network. But if you come on from the beginning like, oh, it's got to be my way or the highway, they're not gonna, jump on your project. Yeah, or they're gonna, push you to the side. Nobody wants to have that in the meeting. So you definitely gotta be flexible, or come off with the illusion of being flexible.
Right.
It's one or the other.
Okay. Now you touched on something that I definitely want to circle back to, and oftentimes we have people that are coming to the pitch pit, and of course they want to pitch to the big ones, the big names, and it's their first time. They have no credits. They don't have a name in this town. They have absolutely nothing but their idea. And always dream big, and also dream realistically. So it's companies like Mandt Brothers Productions and some of the other companies that are coming that are the middleman. You have relationships with the big ones, and so they really need to make sure that when they're selecting their choices that they consider companies like this, because you guys can get on the phone and say, you know what, I just heard some really great ideas, and I was already coming in to talk to you, let me come tell you about it.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is, I think if by big ones we mean you mean networks or even bigger production companies?
Bigger production companies, networks.
You pitch to a network and you're an independent producer, even if you have a great idea, they're either and try and just give you a finder's fee and take your idea and just totally boost you out. That's just real. Or they're going to call up another production company who they happen to like. It could be us. It could be, a bigger one, a smaller one. It just depends on who's making the phone call. So ultimately, you're going to have to work with a production company. Period. And so that's that's that. I mean, and then it's just kind of figuring out what place do you have a synergy with, where you feel like they're invested in seeing the project, to go to the next level. I mean, there's a lot of companies that have 20 times as much stuff in development as we do. So maybe you might want something like that. But for us, we kind of cherry pick the kind of projects that we want to get behind, and then we are vested in seeing those things come to fruition. We'll go out and pitch it a couple of times. I mean, it's easy just to get locked up into a deal for a year with somebody who goes out and takes your project and pitches it one time. And then that's kind of it. It's just on the back burner, and you're just sitting there, upset,
waiting for the shopping agreement to expire.
Yeah, exactly. And then you come back and you call us, but whoever has taken that before is already gone and burned all those bridges at those places.
Right.
So it's like just figuring where do you have a good rapport and who do you feel like is behind you and behind your project. I think those are all really important things. But I think it's just very important to realize that no network. I mean, it would be hard for you to get a meeting with the network. If you come even at PitchCon, you can sit there and pitch them and be like, this is a great idea, but ultimately you're still going to be, you're going to have to partner, you know, and so the kind of partnership you have with your production company should be what dictates who you partner with.
Okay.
You know, that's very important, especially if you're not flexible. If you're that
Flexibility.
guy. If you're that
Flexibility. In terms of the content, the project, whatever format you have it in, when you go in to pitch it, of course you have an idea of what it looks like, what the attachments are, and oftentimes content creators are really married to what it is.
Yeah.
How much will it change as it goes through the process that you just described? You go in, you partner with the production company, they then deal with the network, and it changes hands and it goes up the ladder, and execs have to sign off on it. How close will the finished project look like what you initially pitched?
Yeah, I think it just changes. I mean, it really changes a lot. I mean, really, what you're pitching is all the different. You know, again, like in reality, the majority of what we're selling and pitching are characters. So you really are just saying, here's my character, and this is their whole world. You know, and the network will dictate what part of that world they want to focus on. You know, so if you've got a dynamic character, like what it will be on OWN versus what it will be on True, are two totally different things. That's even if you have a project that could have a world that big. I mean, but you know, you take like someone like True with heavy conflict.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's just your show will be dictated by the network that hopefully buys it. You know, so if you just have in your mind, like, oh no, this project has to go to E, this has to go to E, you know, and E passes on it. I mean, if it goes to Bravo or something like that, it might be totally different. These are all best case scenarios. You should if it's sold and it has changed, I mean, that's great.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely. And that's giving you the credibility so that ultimately you don't need to partner with somebody. But you need that credibility. You need to get a couple projects on the air, you know, you can get your credits, and then you don't have to be so flexible, and you can go direct to the network. So I think at the first stage, it's just about getting your project on the air by any means necessary. However flexible you have to be.
Okay.
I think that's important.
Yes, yes. Credits. If you're a newbie, starting out in this process, and like you said, in some cases, you're just bringing the characters, you're just bringing the talent, so they could just try to give you a finder's fee and push you to the side. What credits are reasonable to fight for? How do you even stay attached to your baby? It's going to change, but how do you stay attached?
Get a good lawyer, get good talent. I mean, if your talent is there and they're solid, and you've signed your talent, which you should for sure before you go out and bring them to anybody, you can leverage that to get more. But you know, like showrunners, they have to be approved by the network. So that's not something that me representing a production company can even promise somebody. It's a showrunner. That's the network has to sign off on it. You can get a creative by credit. You can get maybe a co-EP credit, maybe. But generally, the deals are, you you get a job on a show commensurate with your skill level, your experience, or whatever that is. So it's created by co-EP maybe. And if you have a stellar project and really good, again, talent and a good lawyer, then you can finagle your way and to get a better credit. But in terms of being active in the production of the show, I mean, it is highly unlikely that you'll be show running the show and you've never show run the show. You're like, no, I mean, there's no network that's gonna do that.
You just gotta hang in there.
Just hang in there, but you sold the show, so you should be happy,
Right. Like step one.
Yeah, just sell it, and then worry about the credits and all that kind of stuff. But
keep creating, keep pitching.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, another thing too is, I mean, depending on who you partner with, if you have a good relationship with that production company, I mean, you can arrange stuff with them where you can be involved in the production in an advisory capacity, or it just depends on what your relationship with that production company is and what kind of deal you sign with them.
And of course, if your goal is just to sell it and
20% or whatever, and you're happy.
Okay. Earlier, you talked a little bit about some of the things that Mandt Brothers is working on and what's coming up. And I remember reading about Last Stop for Paul and how it's evolved into Last Stop for
Next Stop
Charlie.
for Charlie.
So I'd love to hear a little background about it. I know it won a lot of accolades and how it's evolved into the show on Showtime.
For sure. That's an interesting situation. I mean, essentially, Neil Mann just had an idea. He really had an idea for the TV show first. But then he was like, you know, okay, so TV show, so let's just make a feature about it. Essentially, you know, it's about a guy who is just going around the world spreading the ashes of his friend, and kind of just gets involved in a lot of crazy scenarios. Shot all over the world. Showtime saw it, they liked it, and said, hey, you know, can you do something like this, but in a series capacity?
Okay.
So of course we said, yeah, we can do that, no problem. And we did it. Came out really well. It was Thursdays at 11. Just finished last year. We just shot the second season, so that'll be premiering in a couple months. It's really fun. And then we're going everywhere too, from like, you know, Lebanon, Israel, to it's hilarious. It's a funny show, so go see it.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're in the States and you were able to join us then for this interview.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I don't travel as much anymore, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Any other projects that you can tell us about that's coming up in the next couple of months or early next year?
I think, you know, there's some pilot presentations in the works at a couple different networks. Just a bunch of stuff in development. Primarily, just the series I know for sure. Obviously, we got the Strangers in Danger that'll premiere on Fuel in a couple months. So that season just finished. Next Up for Charlie, of course, the second season that'll be coming up. The rest of the stuff, you know, just cross our fingers and see when the dates on that stuff will come out. But it'll all be good, and hopefully, I will meet 20 people who have incredible talent that we can sell this year at PitchCon. That's what I'm looking for.
He could be talking about you. So if you haven't registered, then you need to register.
Absolutely. And you know, the last thing I'll say too, or not the last time, I'm just going to this, but an important thing is that, you know, everyone in development, they want to sit down and they want your project to be successful, you know? It sort of seems like a business of no's, but really everybody, like myself included, you know, we want to say yes. We want your project to be the one, you know, because this process is long and arduous, you know, so it's like you want this person, like, the stacks are, you know, it's in your favor, you know what I mean? Nobody's just trying to say no to everything, like, that sucks. Every time somebody sits down and brings their project in, to me, I'm like hoping, like, this is it. You know, like, because it's good for you, it's good for me.
Right.
You know, that's what our jobs are, to find good stuff, not just say no to a bunch of stuff. So people should be encouraged.
I like that.
Yeah.
Be encouraged. Everybody be encouraged.
Yeah, for sure.
So I have one more question, and this is just kind of completely moving away from pitching and all the advice. I want to know, what are you watching now? Your favorite show?
You know what I think is really funny? Duck Dynasty. Have you seen that?
No.
Duck Dynasty just has some hilarious characters. I think it's on A&E. It's about these guys who make duck calls.
I did see that.
That's
okay.
Funny.
I did see the trailer for that.
I'm just saying. I don't know what it is. Those characters are just really funny. Okay. So I'm hoping these people need to bring me some Duck Dynasty-like people somewhere else, you know, like crazy Native Americans. I'm serious. I'm not even kidding.
He did say characters, right?
Yeah, that's all I'm interested in.
Characters.
Yeah, the Duck Dynasty guys are hilarious. I will say that's probably number one on my list. I mean, I have a lot of stuff in the DVR.
What's in your DVR?
Duck Dynasty.
Besides Duck Dynasty, anything else? You have like 100% worth of space. Duck Dynasty is taking up
all the Bulls games.
17%.
Yeah. Besides Duck Dynasty,
or anything that you know is coming up, going to launch this summer and the fall that you're really looking forward to seeing.
I need to read all my upfronts. I don't know, my brain is frozen on that. I'm always thinking of what's new. I'll have to think about that. I'll tweet that later about what's going on.
We'll put it on the website.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully something that I find.
Good answer.
You know?
Good answer. That's
something
another reminder to tell you that
something I found in PitchCon.
Right.
Yeah.
You haven't registered, register.
Absolutely.
Because that could be it.
Yeah.
Well, Stephen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. That's all we have time for today. Stephen Wright will be a catcher at PitchCon. So, go to the website, www.pitchcon.org, and look for the 2012 catchers. His mandate is listed there. So, if it's a good fit with the projects that you have, then you want to make sure that you select Mandt Brothers Productions as one of your top choices to pitch to. And I have a little extra something special that we've put together this year for everyone. This grid will be available on the website, and it's catchers at a glance. So it's basically all the information that is listed in the mandates online with each individual company. We put it together in a grid, and it's broken down by formats. So is it scripted? Is it non-scripted? Is it reality? Digital new media? We've broken down by platform, so is it broadcast, is it cable, etc. We've even done genres, so you can look there and see if a company is looking for lifestyle, DIY, comedy, dramedy, whatever they're looking for.
Yeah.
You can search for them that way. And also elements. Are they looking for spec scripts, show pitches? Are they looking, you mentioned producers, are they looking for writers? So I think this is an excellent handy-dandy resource that we've made available for you ahead of time this year. My suggestion would be when this goes live online, and that should be by 5 o'clock today, PST time, check this out, find out what format, what platform matches your projects, then go back to the website, look at the 2012 catchers, click on their individual links so you can see their mandates and see the details. So I hope this helps you, and again, if you have not registered, well, you don't want to miss your opportunity to pitch to Stephen Wright. He's looking to say yes. He wants to say yes. So you need to register so you can come and pitch your project so he can say yes.
See me first.
Yes. Next week joining us will be Greg Spring of Spring Theory, and he will be our next catcher that we interview. Until then, see you next time.
Cool.
Good stuff.